In this world, is the destiny of mankind controlled by some transcendental entity or law? Is it like the hand of God hovering above? At least it is true that man has no control, even over his own will.
A realm consumed by an eclipse. A king fallen and trapped in an endless struggle against the law of causality. A savior who reveals himself to be a demon, and a warrior whose fate was sealed from birth, doomed to die. This is the story of a man who lost everything, betrayed, hunted, and left for dead. He defies a world where friendship means nothing, and life is merely a currency in the game of the gods. Yet he refuses to accept his destiny. He fights against the inevitable, not for hope, not for salvation, but for vengeance. This is Berserk, written by Kentaro Miura.
Where am I? I can feel my body because of my selfishness. Sin because of me.
The Black Swordsman is the first story arc we experience in Berserk. It begins dark and unforgiving, holding nothing back in terms of the intensity that permeates the entire series. This arc sets the perfect tone for the story, immediately revealing how cruel the world of Berserk is, while at the same time concealing a deeper beauty that will only be unveiled later. Originally published in 1990 and completed within the same year, it throws us right into the middle of the story, without explaining who Guts is or why he is on a relentless quest for vengeance. Only later do we realize that, chronologically, this arc actually takes place after the second major storyline in Berserk, the Golden Age arc. Here we are introduced to Guts as the protagonist, as well as the mystery surrounding the God Hand and the world of Berserk itself. Additionally, another important character makes his debut, Puck, a small, lovable elf who serves as a stark contrast to the grim and brutal world of Berserk. The dynamic between these two characters creates engaging dialogue, with Puck often asking the very questions about Guts' actions and his motives. The relationship between Puck and Guts was actually inspired by Pinocchio and Jiminy Cricket. The two form a duo that immediately resonates with readers, bringing an intriguing character dynamic right from the start. From the very first pages, Guts is introduced in a rather unconventional way. While this strange opening may put off some readers, in hindsight, it works brilliantly. It shows how far Guts has fallen after the events of the Golden Age arc, how much of himself he has lost, and just how far he is willing to go. Kentaro Miura once stated that a character driven by rage and vengeance, and the mystery behind that motivation, is one of the central elements of this arc. The battles against the Snake Baron and the Count quickly establish the kind of perverse and abhorrent creatures our protagonist will have to face as the story progresses. At the same time, we begin to get glimpses of why Guts has chosen this dark path, a path that has turned him into a brutal and ruthless warrior himself. Amid this bleak and blood-soaked atmosphere, we get our first real impression of how merciless the world of Berserk is. The tragedy of innocent lives lost around Guts only reinforces this notion. We find ourselves in a world without mercy, a world so cruel that even a character who once seemed inhuman is now pushed to the brink of despair. At this point, we start asking ourselves questions. What exactly is the God Hand? And what did they do to this Black Swordsman that drove him to embark on such a relentless path of vengeance? These questions reach their climax in the final moments of the arc, when we see the God Hand for the first time and feel the uncontainable fury Guts harbors toward one of its members. To truly understand the significance of this connection, to grasp what the God Hand means to Guts, and to fully comprehend the depth of Berserk, we must travel back to a different time, to the Golden Age. The Golden Age arc is one of the most infamous story arcs in manga history. While the two arcs that follow are on a similarly high level, the Golden Age arc is undeniably essential in understanding Guts' backstory, Griffith's rise, and all the elements that give Berserk its profound depth. The arc began on August 1st, 1991, and concluded on December 27th, 1996. At first glance, the story might seem simple. A group of mercenaries ends the 100-Year War. But this description wouldn't even come close to doing it justice. While one could argue that later arcs refine certain aspects even further, the Golden Age arc remains one of the most well-rounded story arcs ever created. It blends a revenge tale with war scenes, character development, romance, and the growth of friendships. These elements make it one of the most complete story arcs in manga. Miura himself once said, "I knew that the darkness, the eclipse, was coming, so there was really no way out. I also had a reason for making the Golden Age arc as long as it is. I was dissatisfied with so-called flashbacks in many works. It's typical to use them only as short interruptions to maintain the pacing, but I wanted readers to truly feel, deep in their hearts, the reasons behind Guts' revenge and the foundation of his character development. If the flashback were too short, it would risk becoming just an information dump. Since I was drawing it myself, I had to make it into a story that people could emotionally invest in, and that's why it became so long. From birth, Guts was cursed by fate. Born beneath the hanging corpse of his dead mother, he was meant to die as a worthless life. Raised by an abusive foster father who treated him worse than his own dogs, and subjected to violence and trauma from a young age, Guts became nothing more than a beast on the battlefield. He knew only one way of life, the way of the sword, and this fate would follow him forever. Guts was a warrior without purpose or direction until he met the Band of the Hawk. The Band of the Hawk had many important members, Judo, Pippin, and Corcus, to name a few, but two characters were particularly crucial, Griffith and Casca. Griffith is an incredibly fascinating character. His rise from a mere mercenary to a charismatic commander leading an army is remarkable. In Berserk's overarching narrative, he serves as the central antagonist, yet in this arc, we experience his journey firsthand. Miura takes his time to explore Griffith's personality in all its facets, his doubts, his ambitions, and his unwavering determination. His friendship with Guts is profound, yet Griffith himself struggles to fully accept this bond. Griffith is a light that draws everyone toward him, but the closer one gets, the greater the risk of being burned by his fire. And in the end, it is Griffith himself who is consumed by the flames of his own ambition. Casca is an essential part of the Golden Age arc and beyond. She adds a new dimension to Berserk that goes far beyond a simple love story. Her character is fully fleshed out, with her own motivations and growth. Without Casca, the arc, and Berserk as a whole, would suffer immensely. She makes the story even more complex. Her relationship with Guts evolves from rivalry to deep trust. The choices and actions of every character push the story forward with a sense of inescapable fate. Guts joins the Band of the Hawk. They win the 100-Year War. But when Griffith, after Guts' departure, seduces Princess Charlotte, he's thrown into prison and brutally tortured. The Band of the Hawk gives everything to rescue him, only for their efforts to lead to one of the most shocking and masterfully executed twists in anime and manga history. The eclipse is the grand finale of the Golden Age arc, a climax unlike any other. The tragedy that unfolds here is one of the most emotional and harrowing moments in Berserk. It doesn't just change the story, it reshapes our understanding of the characters forever. This arc is far more than just a flashback. It is the very foundation upon which Berserk is built. Everything that follows would not carry the same weight without the events of the Golden Age arc. And that is why it remains one of the greatest and most important story arcs in manga history. With Chapter 73 of Berserk, a scene unfolds that would leave a lasting impact on the medium of manga. The eclipse. This event marks the climax of the dynamic between Guts, the warrior searching for his own dream, and Griffith, the man willing to sacrifice everything for his ambition. The story builds relentlessly toward this fateful moment. Even in the Black Swordsman arc, we are introduced to the Behelit and catch a glimpse of the God Hand. But only now do we truly understand where Guts knew them from and the crucial role they play in this horrific ritual. The eclipse is foreshadowed by Zod and the Skull Knight, and we learn that this is not the first occurrence of its kind. A linear narrative would not suffice here, as many variables influence this seemingly predestined event: individual choices, divine interventions, and manipulations. The eclipse reveals, for the first time, the cyclical repetitions of history. One example is the story of the Skull Knight and Void. We learn that Void and the Skull Knight, once known as King Geyserich, were part of a previous eclipse. That event transformed the Skull Knight into a vessel of resistance against the God Hand, and led to his later intervention in this eclipse. But back to the scene itself, the emotions it evokes, rage, pain, despair, are overwhelming. It is the ultimate betrayal and the dawn of a new era in Berserk. Griffith, who would do anything for his dream, finds himself utterly powerless after his mutilation. Miura masterfully portrays his complete helplessness. Griffith is so desperate that he even attempts to take his own life. Meanwhile, Guts has found new hope in Casca. But Griffith possesses something that has saved him multiple times: the Crimson Bahulit. It was his fate to own it, and now, in his most desperate moment, its purpose is fulfilled. The eclipse begins, exactly 216 years after the last one. As Griffith's blood drips onto the Bahulit, the ritual is set in motion. Demon-like creatures appear, while the entire band of the Hawk is present. As the moon eclipses the sun, the ritual unfolds. The Bahulit emits harrowing screams as Guts struggles to reach Griffith. Then, all present are transported to an eerie, otherworldly dimension. For the first time, we witness divine forces, a central theme in the arcs to come. The God Hand appears, and Griffith is brought before them. At this moment, it is crucial to examine Griffith's character. As he is lifted by the God Hand, his true nature is laid bare. Griffith is someone who paves his path upward over the corpses of others. Regret, that would invalidate all the lives he has already sacrificed. His path is irreversible. He must either ascend further or fall into insignificance. As Void puts it, such is the cruel fate of a god born as a man. For Guts, everything becomes clear in this moment. Griffith was the only one who made him forget about his own dream. When Griffith utters the word sacrifice, the falcons are branded, and the massacre begins. One by one, they fall. Corcus is devoured by an apostle. Judeau is killed while trying to escape with Casca. Casca is captured and assaulted by the apostles. Guts fights desperately to reach Griffith, but he is overwhelmed. In the sea of blood, he sees the corpses of his friends. Gaston is slaughtered before his eyes. Pippin is torn apart by an apostle. And then, the unthinkable happens. Griffith, now reborn as Femto, takes Casca into his arms and rapes her, right in front of Guts. In this moment, Guts' world shatters. The man he considered his closest friend destroys everything he holds dear. In a frenzy of rage, he hacks off his own arm in a desperate attempt to reach Griffith, but he is struck down, his eye gouged out. Now, we finally understand why Guts lost an eye and an arm, and why the God Hand hunts him, but fate decrees that he must not die. The Skull Knight appears and rescues both him and Casca. What makes this scene truly terrifying is not just the event itself, but its aftermath. After days of unconsciousness, Guts awakens to the realization that it was not a nightmare. But the worst revelation comes when he reunites with Casca. She no longer recognizes him. The trauma has shattered her mind. Miura himself commented on this decision. I was emotionally invested in every character. Many readers were angry about what happened to Casca, but I knew that her existence was crucial for Guts' motivation. If she had died, his quest for revenge would have eventually lost its meaning. Now, Guts is alone, driven by a single purpose: revenge. With the Dragon Slayer in hand, he becomes the hunter of apostles. The Lost Children story arc is a part within the Conviction arc, and is referred to as the Lost Children chapter. It serves as a perfect transition, bringing the reader back to Guts' present reality after the harrowing events of the eclipse. It specifically delves into Guts' inner darkness and the consequences of his way of life over the past 2 years. Within this arc, Miura's impressionistic art style shines brilliantly. The dynamic between Guts and Puck stands out, adding remarkable depth to the chapter. The Golden Age saga is often seen as the crown jewel of Berserk. It built an emotional connection to Guts' humanity and the things he lost. This arc focuses on his struggle to hold on to what little remains. The transformation Guts undergoes is striking, and this change truly begins with the Lost Children chapter. The story follows a village ravaged by demonic elves. The fear of these creatures has become so overwhelming that the villagers have already taken drastic measures. This mini-arc introduces themes that are further developed throughout the rest of the Conviction arc. Guts confronts the villagers with their own hypocrisy when they condemn him, despite none of them having done anything to help. The struggle with self-justification and double standards is a central theme in this arc, one that Guts ultimately has to grapple with himself. Another major theme is the question of what truly constitutes light and darkness. The contrast between Guts' appearance and Rosine's exemplifies this perfectly. For most of the story, Rosine seems like an innocent, childlike being, while Guts appears as the barbaric black swordsman, shrouded in darkness and rage. The Conviction arc also introduces an entire religious order that worships angels. Angels who are anything but holy. Here we witness a pivotal moment in Guts' character development. He stands at a crossroads he will encounter many times throughout his journey. What choices will he make? If this section of Berserk teaches us anything, it is that there is no paradise. And, as we see through Rosine's story, there is no fairy tale to escape into either. All that remains is harsh reality. The Conviction arc in Berserk explores a variety of complex themes while delivering masterful character development. The story unfolds gradually, focusing on the inner turmoil of its characters as they struggle with their convictions and the weight of their past. At the heart of this arc is Guts, who is forced to confront his dark past. He forms new convictions and faces challenges that drive his personal growth. A defining aspect of this arc is the increasing presence of Griffith, who rises to the forefront of the narrative with an almost otherworldly charisma. Yet despite this transcendent aura, the fragile human side of the characters is never lost. They battle pain, loss, and grief, which makes them tangible and realistic, even within a world filled with fantastical and supernatural elements. Berserk masterfully portrays these human weaknesses without diluting the dark atmosphere or the supernatural themes of the story. A defining quote from the arc states, "Hatred is a place where people who cannot deal with their grief find refuge." Guts is the perfect example of how hatred can be misused as a coping mechanism. The loss of Griffith and his comrades left deep scars, and Guts' pursuit of revenge, especially his relentless hunt for apostles, only amplifies his pain rather than healing it. The rage he feels cannot suppress his profound sorrow. Instead, it drags him deeper into an escalating abyss. A pivotal chapter in this arc is Cracks in the Blade, in which Guts is confronted with a fundamental question. Why does he run from war and hatred? This scene forces Guts to question his own motivations, revealing that his actions stem not from inner strength, but from an emptiness he cannot fill by killing apostles. Mozgus, a fanatical religious leader and the arc's primary antagonist, is another crucial character. He embodies the exploitation of religion, the abuse of faith for power and control. His character and the development of his followers stand in stark contrast to Guts' journey, raising thought-provoking questions about faith, conviction, and morality. The introduction of Farnese, a fanatical yet deeply conflicted character, adds an intriguing dynamic to the story. Initially presented as a sadist who hides her dark desires behind a religious facade, she undergoes a transformation that makes her one of the most complex and fascinating female characters in the series. Her development significantly influences Guts and the other characters. Isidro, a young, ambitious, and initially clumsy fighter, brings fresh energy to the story. He introduces a positive shift in the arc's tone, symbolizing hope and the potential for a new beginning. Isidro represents a younger generation that refuses to be crushed by the world's brutality, hinting at the possibility of a new era. A central theme of the Conviction arc is causality, the intricate web of events unfolding over time, bringing the right people to the right place at the right moment. Guts, Casca, Puck, and the others are all part of a larger plan that gradually reveals itself as they face new challenges on their journey. The climax of the arc is the return of Griffith, reborn in a new body. The Conviction arc is a gripping thriller that captivates readers on every page. By introducing new characters and developing existing ones, it expands the universe of Berserk. The arc explores how its characters confront both their inner struggles and external threats, and what it means to hold on to one's convictions while the world crumbles around them. The Millennium Falcon arc is one of the longest in Berserk, spanning from April 13th, 2001 to September 25th, 2009. Like the Conviction arc and even the Golden Age arc, it weaves together multiple storylines and character perspectives. During this arc, Kentaro Miura incorporated more fantasy and political elements into the world of Berserk. Magic took on a greater role, and for the first time, the story provided an extensive look into Griffith's perspective. Griffith reappears after the events of the previous arc, just as Guts attempts to leave his past behind and focus on protecting Casca. But this encounter forces him to once again face the man who took everything from him. Guts is confronted with a harsh truth. Griffith is no longer the man he once knew. Free from human flaws and guilt, Griffith now pursues his dream with cold, unwavering determination. In contrast, Guts fights desperately to hold on to his humanity. One of the most significant chapters in this arc is chapter 178. When Guts realizes that Griffith feels no remorse for his actions, he impulsively attacks him. But Zod stands in his way. Their battle destroys what was supposed to be a safe haven for Casca, forcing Guts to find a new refuge for her, while Griffith continues to follow his grand ambition. Miura placed a particular emphasis on Griffith's development in this arc. In an interview, he confirmed that the battle against Ganishka was deliberately designed to solidify Griffith's power and position. As a result, the story began to follow two distinct narrative paths, one centered on Guts and the other on Griffith. Interestingly, Griffith's storyline almost begins as if he were the protagonist. Miura explained that Griffith rarely expresses his own emotions, yet he is surrounded by characters who do. Griffith was meant to be viewed from his own perspective. For some, he is a savior, while to Guts, he is a threat. Meanwhile, Guts must come to terms with the fact that he cannot protect Casca alone. Farnese, Serpico, and Isidro join him, offering their support. They help him reclaim parts of himself that he lost during the Golden Age arc. However, their journey remains fraught with hardships. In a village plagued by trolls, they encounter a young witch named Shirke. She becomes a vital member of their group, introducing even more magical elements into the story. Her connection to key figures like Flora and the Skull Knight lays the groundwork for future developments. But then, the new band of the Hawk appears. Zod and Grunbeld launch an attack, while Guts is already gravely injured after his encounter with Slan of the God Hand. In this confrontation, a crucial new element is introduced, the Berserker armor. It was designed to push Guts further into madness, without making his physical limits unrealistically excessive. The armor enhances his combat abilities, but robs him of reason. It becomes not only an iconic power-up, but also a symbol of darkness, tying into the mythology of the Skull Knight. The Millennium Falcon arc concludes with a monumental event. Ganishka transforms into a colossal entity, and Griffith uses an attack from the Skull Knight to merge the astral and physical realms. This act gives birth to Falconia, Griffith's new kingdom. While Griffith achieves his goal, Guts is once again left facing an uncertain future. The Fantasia arc began on October 9th, 2009, marking a significant turning point in Berserk. In many ways, this part of the story sees Miura moving away from the dark, grounded realism of previous arcs, delving deeper into a mythical and fantastical dimension. With the merging of the physical and astral worlds, a completely new reality has emerged, one where creatures and forces that were once hidden now reign freely over the world. While Guts and his companions remain at sea, Griffith's vision of a new era continues to unfold. Falconia, the city built as a sanctuary for humanity, rises in all its splendor. Yet, behind its radiant facade, the truth remains grim. Griffith's rule is absolute, and his influence continues to grow. As he eliminates his enemies and humanity gathers within Falconia's walls, his kingdom takes on an almost godlike status. Meanwhile, Guts' journey is no less spectacular. His voyage is plagued by numerous dangers, none more formidable than the battle against the Sea God, a creature that perfectly embodies the new nature of this world. The fight takes place within a realm where physical and astral realities are inseparably intertwined. Guts, confronting this immense threat, must literally fight his way into the Sea God's body to destroy it from within. Ultimately, he's saved by Isma and Naros, making this one of the most breathtaking battles in the series. Parallel to this, another crucial confrontation takes place. Rickert, one of the last surviving members of the original Band of the Hawk, comes face to face with Griffith. Driven by his knowledge of the past, he questions him about the truth. The moment reaches its climax with an unexpected act of defiance. Rickert slaps Griffith across the face. This symbolic strike is not just Rickert's personal rejection of Griffith's rule, but also the final severing of the old Band of the Hawk. One of the most significant aspects of this arc is the exploration of Casca's shattered psyche. After years of suffering, she's finally led into the dreamscape, where we witness a breathtaking visualization of her fragmented mind. Miura delivers a masterful artistic depiction of metaphysical trauma, turning the abstract into a visual form. Events like the eclipse are presented in a surreal style, making Casca's inner struggles palpable. Yet, the tragedy of her healing is that once she regains her memories, she can no longer look at Guts. Her past is inextricably linked to her deepest trauma. Since the early days of Berserk, the demon infant, the mysterious entity that repeatedly appeared to Guts and Casca, has been an enigma. In the Fantasia arc, its true identity is revealed. It is not only a part of Griffith, but also the Moonlight Boy, a figure who has subtly made appearances throughout the story. This revelation opens countless new interpretations regarding Griffith's rebirth and raises questions about a possible weakness or even a potential downfall for Femto. Could this be the key to his defeat, or even to a form of redemption? Guts now stands at a crossroads. In another pivotal scene, he encounters the creator of the Berserker armor and gains deeper insight into the past of the Skull Knight. Through this, he learns about a previous eclipse and the origins of the God Hand. These revelations not only expand the lore of Berserk, but also pose an important question. Is Guts destined to follow the same path as the Skull Knight? The Fantasia arc culminates in a moment of immense significance. Griffith appears on the island. This marks the end of one chapter and the beginning of a new era. Where Berserk will go from here remains uncertain. But one thing is clear, the world has been irrevocably changed. The Fantasia arc stands as a milestone in Berserk. It seamlessly blends reflection, mythology, and epic battles, elevating the series to a new level. From Casca's return to the revelation of the Moonlight Boy and Rickart's defiance, this arc lays the groundwork for the grand finale of the story. Whether it leads to Griffith's downfall or an even greater catastrophe remains to be seen. Berserk is a timeless masterpiece, a story that transcends generations, and quite possibly the greatest manga ever written. Kentaro Miura's vision gave us a world of unimaginable depth, raw emotion, and philosophical weight. His storytelling, his art, his characters, everything about Berserk sets a standard that few, if any, can ever hope to reach. Though Miura is no longer with us, his legacy lives on. Berserk isn't just a manga, it's an experience, a journey, a testament to what fiction can achieve. And as long as there are readers willing to walk the path of struggle alongside Guts, this story will never die.